Hey guys, welcome to Life in America with Nelia. I hope you enjoy our episode for today. It's gonna be several parts so I can feature the entire trip here in Wisconsin Dells. It's a boat ride. It's a beautiful place. I hope you enjoy.
Ahead here on the right, you'll see a large triangular shaped slab of rock nestled against the cliff. We call that the Giant Shield and use it as an unofficial high water marker. In 1993 and in 2010, water crested the top of that shield. In 1938, water reached a point that was 4 feet above the top of the Giant Shield. That's the highest recorded water level we have here in the Dells, but it gives you an idea of some of the differing water levels we can have depending on conditions like rainfall and snowmelt. Yeah. We are at about normal level right now. Our next rock formation requires a little bit of imagination. It kind of looks like an alligator. Bear with me here. So it's over here on the left, 2 or 3 feet above the water. There's a broken tree laying on his back. He's facing the river, has his mouth hanging wide open. Just up ahead, it looks a little bit like an alligator. Kind of, maybe. Got a couple nods. Just over there on the left. Now you might look at that and say that's quite a stretch. I don't think that really looks like an alligator at all.
Crocodile.
You might be right.
Crocodile.
I think he's actually more of a rockodile. Sorry. Oh geez, I know these are very bad. Try not to go overboard. Yeah, that was another one. Alrighty, I'm gonna spare you some of these jokes here for a moment. There's a break in the commentary until Steamboat Rock. I've been talking for quite a while, so I'll let you sit back, relax. It's a beautiful day.
There you go, baby. Yes. No photo. Make
Where?
some
Yeah, there you
intro.
go. Oh, I get to talk now?
You can talk now.
No, you said I could talk, so I just want to say that we are on a boat tour on the upper part of the Wisconsin Dells, and it's very nice, very relaxing, and very informative.
I agree with you. It's really fun and very historical.
Just off to our right hand side here, you will see Steamboat Rock, the largest all rock island here in the Dells. We do have a few more, but they're all down on the lower Dells below the dam. Steamboat Rock got its name in the early 1900s from hot air balloonists. They said that from above, it looked like one of the pumpkin seed-shaped steamboats floating along the river at the time. Over on the right, you'll see that dock and those set of stairs. People ask me all the time, where do those stairs go? I can tell you pretty confidently, they don't go anywhere. They stay there all year round. That was, of course, another bad joke. They actually lead up to Chula Vista. That's all those buildings you can see up on the right-hand shoreline there. Chula Vista means beautiful view. They do have quite a view of the river from up there, but that wasn't always the case. Back in the early 1900s, there were a lot of buildings along the shorelines here in the Upper Dells. Several resorts, there were some restaurants and private homes, and one man named George Crandall thought those really took away from the natural beauty of the Dells. So every time any land for sale, or land along the river came up for sale, he would try to buy it up. He didn't get very far very fast though until the Great Depression in the 30s, when a lot of those businesses failed. People moved away from the area, and he was able to buy up 90% of the land you're seeing on the Upper Dells and about 40% of the Lower Dells for sometimes as little as $1 an acre. He tore down all those buildings and planted around 140,000 new trees in the attempt to restore this area to what it might have looked like before the buildings had come along. He was once quoted as saying that no one person should be able to own the Dells, only be its custodian for a time. So he did hand the land down to his daughters. They thought it was a little too hard to manage though, so they gave it to the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation in 1954 with the stipulation that it never be developed. They kept it for quite a few years, but then they sold it in 1996 to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, and they still hold it to this day. So this land is part of a state natural area, and that's a little more protected than a state park. Really limits the access of the general public to the shorelines. You may have seen some beaches on the way up. Those are open to the public for the most part, but you need a boat to get to most of them. There isn't shoreline access there. And the waterway is completely open to the public as well. On a busy summer day, you'll see land that is considered trespassing on the state natural area. And of course, that's just to keep everything out here as protected as possible. We are very thankful for George Crandall and his foresight to preserve all of this beautiful land. So this forest off to our right-hand side here for the next mile or so is called the George Crandall Memorial Forest. It's about 1 mile across. And then up ahead here on our right, coming into view in just a moment, are the tallest cliffs on the tour, about 85 feet tall. They're called the Sunset Cliffs because every night the sun sets out across the bay and the last few rays of light hit those rocks. Really brings out some of the beautiful golds, tans, yellows, oranges, pinks, and sometimes even reds in the sandstone. So very beautiful out here, especially in the evening. That's just off to our right there. Approaching our first stop, the Witch's Gulch. It was named by a landscape photographer in the 1800s named Henry Hamilton Bennett. I'll tell you a bit more about him at Stand Rock, but he spent his days rowing up and down river taking pictures of everything around here. He had never been back to the gulch since that spirits lurked within, and if he went into the canyon, he would never come out. Well, that didn't stop him, so he brought his canoe up here. Now, he couldn't fit it through the entrance of the gulch, so he walked, waded, and swam through its depths, but then he encountered a waterfall, and that blocked his passage to the back, so he had to leave. But he came back that next winter, skated 5 miles upstream on his ice skates, chipped his way through the gulch, made some ice steps into the frozen waterfall, and then he made it to the back for the first time. He did notice the cooler temperatures, the eerie ambiance, and the strange look of the rock formations, so he named it the Witch's Gulch. Now, this is the first of our 2 stops today. Both of our walks are optional, but highly recommended. This is the easier of the 2 walks as well, so if you're only taking one, this is the one I would recommend. It's about 2 city blocks long of flat wooden boardwalk, so 4 blocks total. You'll go in and out on the same path. Along the way, you'll see the Whirlpool Chambers, Witch's Bathtub, Witch's Window, Witch's Falls, and Spooky Lane. If you're not sure which witch is which, there are signs of yellow down there. And some are below the boardwalk as well, so make sure you're looking up, down, all around in there. If you want to go in a little ways, turn around and come back out to the boat, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to make the full walk. The end of the walk, though, is marked by a concession. So if you could be back to the boat no later than 2:25, gauge your time, I'll be back to the boat no later than 2:25. That means you should leave the concession stand no later than 2:20 in order to be back to the boat on time. Most importantly here, stay seated as we're docking the boat. Gabe and I are going to hop off, we're going to tie up, and we're going to let you know verbally that it's safe to stand up and come ashore. Please don't stand up before that. That's just in case we might bump the dock. Don't want anyone to fall over and get hurt. And finally, remember that you are on the General Bailey with Bryn and Gabe. Best looking boat, best looking crew. Don't forget it, just in case there's no boat back here once you guys are getting back to the boat. Otherwise, welcome to the Witch's Gulch.
Yeah, let's go for a walk.
Let's go. Going for the first stop. What is this? Which?
We don't know what y'all talked about. We didn't know about anything. She was just, no, I mean her.
Oh.
How clear the water is. Hey, look at this one.
Oh, wow. And it's cold. Wait. Oh, cold.
right. We're going to take a short walk back to the little amphitheater, then we'll gather there. I'll give a presentation and we'll see that jumping German Shepherd. While we are all doing that, Gabe is going to be moving the boat from the first dock to the second one, the one just off to the left there. And he's doing that because this is a horseshoe-shaped or a C-shaped walk, so we will not retrace our steps at any point. I repeat, do not retrace your steps at any point. If you do, you'll retrace them right out to an empty dock. There won't be a boat waiting for you. You'll have a bit of a swim. The water's deep and the fish are hungry. So I will be up there to direct you as well. But that means once we leave the amphitheater, we'll be taking a different path than the one we took in, and that new path is a little bit more strenuous than the last walk. So there is a bit of a hill or an incline for about 80 yards. It's a 20% grade, so every 5 steps you take forward, you're also taking about 1 step up. It's all paved, there are no stairs, there's a railing on one side and a half wall on the other, and then of course there is the corresponding decline on the other side to get down from on top of that hill. But if you feel you are unable to make this walk for any reason, or if you don't want to make this walk for any reason, that is perfectly fine. Just please stay here on the boat with Gabe, and he will move from the first dock to the second with you aboard. There is a portion of this walk that does not have, or a portion of our dock, sorry, that does not have a railing on one side. That's so we can dock multiple boats at a time, or so we can dock in different water levels. But especially if you have little ones with you today, please hold their hand and everyone stay off to the left-hand side of the dock. And watch your step, no swimming today. As we're docking here one more time, stay seated. We'll let you know it's safe to stand up and come ashore. I think that's it, so welcome to Steamboat Rock.
And this is the
Stand Rock.
Stand Rock.
There's a spider on my back.
Oh, the color.
Yeah.
Henry Hamilton Bennett, the same man that named the Gulch and everything you just saw there, he actually made this place famous as well. Like I said, he was a landscape photographer in the 1800s, but back then, photography was a little bit different. Most people were in studios taking portraits, and part of the reason for that is when you were taking a picture of something, that something had to be completely still for the entire length of time you were taking the picture, anywhere from a couple seconds up to nearly a minute. And if it moved at all during that time, the picture wouldn't turn out, it would be very blurry. So in a studio, of course, it's easy to control the environment and to ask people to stand completely still. But Bennett wanted to be out here on the river taking pictures, but of course everything out here is always moving. So what he did is he created what he called the snapper, what we would now call the stop action shutter. That's in all of your cameras today. His version was just a cigar box and a few rubber bands, and it snapped down over the lens of his camera to create that shutter-like effect, but it did the trick. He was able to take pictures instantly and take pictures of things in motion. Well, he was trying to think of a way to debut his innovation there and to show people that his snapper worked as well as he said it did. So one day he was out here on the river with his son and he came to Stand Rock. Henry climbed up on that ledge behind you with his snapper, and he had his 15-year-old son Ashley Bennett climb up this side, and he told him to jump. So he tried to get a picture of him directly in the middle of that leap. He didn't quite get that shot on the first try, or the second, or the third. It wasn't actually until the 17th try that he caught a picture of him directly in the middle of his leap, and that's the famous photograph you can see right here. So he showed this picture around, and people were really amazed by what they saw. They believed the snapper worked. You can't stop yourself in midair, so they knew the pictures weren't faked. And they were pretty excited about what that meant for photography, but they were also really interested in the rock formation in the picture. So they asked him where it was, and when he answered, he said none other than the dells of the Wisconsin River. So it was actually this right here, the river and rock formations along it that you've seen today that brought people to this area in the first place. Like we said before, the Dells is pretty well known for water parks these days, but those first got here in the 1960s, and we've been giving river tours since 1857, over 100 years before that. This photo was taken in 1886, and it's this, along with Bennett's other pictures of the area, that really drew people in large numbers to the Dells for the first time. So I always like to say thanks so much for coming out and taking the tour today. Really hope you have enjoyed it so far. We appreciate you helping us keep the history of the Dells alive. I think it's a cool place. We do not have Ashley Bennett to do the jump anymore, of course, but we do have a German Shepherd who will reenact that famous leap. He's going to jump once across and once back, and fair warning, he is very fast. So if you want to try for a picture, get your cameras ready.
Right now? Oh, there you go. Wait.
Everyone ready?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I didn't hear any no's. Ready?
Perfect. Awesome.
I told you it was fast.
Yeah, good job. He's waiting. He's like, give me a treat. Good job.
Did anyone manage to get a picture of him in the middle? Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. If you didn't, it took Bennett 17 tries. So. Alrighty, in 1 second to continue on the path, so looking in it, you will see names carved in the rock there. It is illegal, there is a fine. We want to preserve the natural beauty as long as we can. So thanks in advance for helping us out with that. Otherwise, when you're ready, the path on the right.
That's fine.
So you're standing here.
This one, right?
Yeah, well, both of them.
Oh. You just witnessed the second stop, where is they told us about the Steamboat. You like the, is it German Shepherd?
Yeah.
Yeah, the German Shepherd, like jump from one rack to the other. That is awesome. Good job.
The word Dells comes from the French word Dalles, D-A-L-L-E-S, in French that originally referred to a gutter, but the voyagers used it to refer to a narrow stretch of river with steep banks or rocky outcroppings, or where the water was swift. And it can also refer to flagstones, which are flat table-like rocks the French used to line their gutters. So you put it together, it's a narrow stretch of river with steep banks lined with flat table-like rocky outcroppings. So extremely descriptive of what you didn't see today. Enough English speakers said it just became Dells. The word Wisconsin comes from the native term Meskousing, and that was the name of this river. This is the Meskousing. And native linguists argued about its meaning for a long time, but a few years ago they agreed that it most likely meant River of the Great Red Stone, or river that runs through a red place. They also agreed that that Great Red Stone, that red place, is the rocks here in the Dells. There's nowhere else along the river like that with the red stone or the red place. And it was sacred to more than one native tribe, the Fox and the Ho-Chunk. So kind of like River of the Dells. So when Father heard this river just south of here, Portage, Wisconsin, in 1673, on his map, Meskousing. A couple years later, another explorer named LaSalle was mapping the Great Lakes and used Marquette's map as a reference, but he misread his handwriting. He misread his cursive M as in O-U-I, the French oui. So he wrote it on his map as the Wisconsin River. And even though he tried to correct his mistake later on, it just kind of stuck. That was the river's name for over 130 years, the Wisconsin or Wisconsin, with a lot of different spellings along the way. In 1831, they decided on the spelling that you see today. And in 1848, when we became a state, the state took the name of the river because of its importance to the commerce of the area due to the lumber trade. This was their highway. So a lot of people don't know that. They named the state of Wisconsin after the river and not the other way around. And more specifically, this stretch of the river here in the Dells. So we like to say it's a place so beautiful they named the state after it. And if LaSalle didn't mess up reading that, our state's name might be something like Misconsin. Something like that. But I don't know. I like the W. Real quick, kind of a fun fact. I don't always point this out, but I happen to be here. Over here on the right, on the edge, you might see Skull Rock. Looking to the left, you can see his eye socket 8 feet above the water, and his cheekbone there looking to the left. Behind that is a little beach and kind of an arch in the sandstone. It's kind of hard to see on the backside of Skull Rock there. But they call that Arch Cove or Paradise. And back in the days before they built the dam, that's where the steamboats would dock to Stand Rock. There wasn't a road back there, so you'd have to dock right there and walk through mosquito-infested swamps to see Sands Rock. So building the dam, at least, made our shore landings easier to access. Part of the last Wisconsin glacier. At the end of the last ice age, the glaciers came from the north, and for a multitude of reasons, they split and went around western Wisconsin. It's called the driftless area, never touched by glacial drift. It's a very ancient, rugged landscape characterized by deep-cut river valleys and large sandstone bluffs, caves, things like that. It extends into the neighboring states a little bit, but most of it's western Wisconsin. So the glacier stopped about 2 miles off to our left, so extreme eastern edge. If those glaciers would have kept moving, it would have crushed all this into sandy beaches, and we would not have the dells. But it curled around the lower dells and dammed up the Wisconsin River. The melting of the glacier and the damming of the river created Glacial Lake, Wisconsin, about the size of the Great Salt Lake. Covered central Wisconsin for some time, till about 15,000 years.
First permanent dam built on the river, constructed in 1909. Middle structure there, that's the highway bridge. See some cars on top of that. The closest structure to us is the railroad bridge. That's actually the third railroad bridge to stand in that spot. The first was built in 1853, and they built it out of wood, but sparks from passing rail cars going overhead burned it down. So they decided to build another one, and they used wood, and it burned down again. So they tried it one more time in 1903, and I think that's the year they got it right, because that time they used steel. As you can see, it is steel there. Steel. That's my favorite. I had to put one more there. That is the last, I promise. Alrighty, the dock's here just ahead of us, so we're going to dock on the same boat you got on, or same dock you got on the boat. To get up to street level, you will walk back along the dock, up the same stairs you came down, or if you do need the elevator, there is one off to the left-hand side of the stairs, and you're welcome to use that as well.